it, but all of you know it. Israel is expected to remove Hamas from the equation. It's very nice that you mention it, but who is going to do it? It is on our shoulder to make it happen. We are left to do the real work, to eliminate Hamas, the ultimate obstacle to peace. And make no mistake, Hamas is the biggest winner of any endorsement here today. By the time the speeches conclude, they will congratulate you. They will declare this is the fruit of October 7th. This is their reward for storming across our borders, slaughtering entire families in their homes, burning people alive, kidnapping children and the elderly, raping women, and dragging hundreds into captivity. And now, with this declaration, they learn a deadly lesson that such savagery brings political reward. That lesson is as dangerous as any weapon. And if anyone doubts that Hamas will continue down this path, look no further than this week's terrorist attack at a bus stop in Jerusalem. Innocent civilians gunned down as they waited for their morning commute. That is a proof. Hamas and its allies will not stop. They do not seek peace. They test again and again whether terror still pays. Madam President, this declaration is one-sided. It does not designate Hamas as a terrorist organization, and it dares to equate the release of Israeli hostages with the release of convicted terrorists. Shame on you. This meaningless political maneuver takes place while innocent people remain blindfolded in Gaza's tunnels, starved, tortured, waiting. Meanwhile, many members of this assembly blindfold themselves by choice. By endorsing this declaration, you cover your own eyes. You choose not to see the truth, to ignore the facts. Israel will not wear that blindfold. We see the hostages. We see the terror. We see this declaration for what it is, a political gesture, an act of theater. Madam President, we will not allow Hamas to win in this assembly what it could not gain on October 7th.
I thank the distinguished representative of Israel, and now I give the floor to the distinguished representative of the United States.
Thank you, Madam President. Colleagues, U.S. opposition to this resolution should come as no surprise. The United States opposes the New York Declaration, as we oppose the high-level international conference for the peaceful settlement of the question of Palestine and the implementation of the two-state solution and the resolution that mandated it. GA action on the New York Declaration is yet another misguided and ill-timed publicity stunt that undermines serious diplomatic efforts to end the conflict. Make no mistake, this resolution is a gift to Hamas. It is likewise cynical, transparently driven by the domestic politics rather than a serious foreign policy agenda. As Secretary Rubio has noted, progress in negotiations aimed at achieving a ceasefire over the summer collapsed when one of the states organizing the conference encouraged Hamas's intransigence by announcing its intention to recognize a conjectural Palestinian state. Far from promoting peace, the conference has already prolonged the war, emboldened Hamas, and harmed the prospects of peace in both short and long term. The United States will not participate in this insult to the victims of October 7th, but we will continue to lead real-world efforts to end the fighting and to deliver a permanent peace. We should be focused on how to end the war and eliminate and disarm Hamas. This war could end tomorrow if Hamas was disarmed, released hostages, and surrendered. But Hamas continues to refuse. Today's resolution is yet another counterproductive gesture that only rewards Hamas, drags out the war, and undercuts the very diplomatic efforts to free the hostages and end the suffering in Gaza, which the New York Declaration claims to support. The declaration this resolution endorses is merely another example of the stale thinking that has led to failure after failure in the Middle East peace negotiations for decades, but remains prevalent in the halls of the United Nations and among too many of its members. The declaration engages in disturbing moral equivalence and fails to recognize the reality that Hamas's terrorism on October 7th was the reason this war was necessary, and its refusal to free the hostages and lay down its arms is the reason this war continues. The version of the declaration being voted on today even continues to contain language endorsing the so-called right of return, which would mean the demographic death of Israel as a Jewish state. For these reasons, the United States urges delegations to join us in voting against the resolution. Thank you.
I thank the distinguished representative of the United States. We have heard the last speaker in the explanation of vote before vote. The Assembly will now take a decision on draft resolution A/AD/L1/Revision 1 entitled Endorsement of the New York Declaration on the Peaceful Settlement of the Question of Palestine and the Implementation of the Two-State Solution. A recorded vote has been requested. We shall now begin the voting process. Those in favor of draft resolution A/AD/L1/Revision 1, please signify. Those against? Abstentions.
The General Assembly is now voting on draft resolution A/AD/L1/Revision 1 entitled Endorsement of the New York Declaration on the Peaceful Settlement of the Question of Palestine and the Implementation of the Two-State Solutions. Will all delegations confirm that their votes are accurately reflected on the screen? The voting has been completed. Please lock the machine.
The result of the vote is as follows. In favor, 142. Against, 10. Abstentions, 12. Draft resolution A/80/L1/Revision 1 is adopted. Before giving the floor for explanations of vote after the vote, may I remind delegations again that they are strongly urged to limit explanation of vote to 5 minutes, which should in any case not exceed 10 minutes and be made from their seats. I give the floor to the distinguished representative of Bulgaria.
Madam President, Bulgaria has supported the resolution we have just adopted and would like to reaffirm its principled support for the right of the Palestinian people to self-determination and for the establishment of an independent, democratic and viable state of Palestine, living side by side in peace and security with Israel. We recall that Bulgaria recognized the state of Palestine in 1988 and has consistently contributed to efforts aimed at achieving a peaceful two-state solution in line with international law and relevant UN resolutions. Bulgaria once again calls for an immediate ceasefire and the release of all hostages, as well as for urgent measures to alleviate the dire humanitarian situation in Gaza. We strongly condemn the terrorist acts of Hamas and stressed the necessity of its permanent exclusion from the political realm. Bulgaria reiterates its unequivocal condemnation of terrorism in all its forms and manifestations, regardless of its objectives. Terrorism must never be associated with any faith, religion, or ethnicity. A coordinated international response remains essential in this regard. We expect all parties involved to adhere to this clear and consistent position. At the same time, Bulgaria acknowledges the complexity of implementing the two-state solution in the current political context. Certain elements of the declaration, including institutional reforms, electoral processes, and regional security mechanisms, will require further clarification and the establishment of reliable mechanisms to ensure their effectiveness. We underscore the importance of broad legitimacy and internal consensus within Palestinian society, as well as the constructive involvement of all relevant regional and international stakeholders. In closing, Bulgaria expresses its appreciation for the efforts of France and the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia in rallying the international community behind the two-state solution. Thank you.
I thank the representative of Bulgaria, and I give the floor to the Kingdom of the Netherlands.
Thank you, Madam President. I thank you for convening us today, and I have the honor to deliver this explanation of vote on behalf of the Kingdom of the Netherlands. The Kingdom of the Netherlands expresses its gratitude to France and Saudi Arabia for convening the conference on the two-state solution. The New York Declaration contains important elements, such as the support for the right of self-determination of the Palestinian people, in line with the ICJ advisory opinion of 19th of July 2024 and the rejection of any territorial reduction. We reiterate that Hamas is a terrorist organization, and we welcome the condemnation of the terrorist attacks committed on the 7th of October and the call to immediately and unconditionally release all hostages. Hamas must be disarmed and cannot be part of any future government in Gaza. The Kingdom of the Netherlands welcomes the clear support for the New York Declaration and the resumption of the conference during High-Level Week. The Kingdom of the Netherlands wishes to underline the need to stand together on the issue of this two-state solution, and we condemn the illegal E1 settlement plan, effectively splitting the occupied West Bank in two. These plans constitute a clear violation of international law, and unilateral steps like these further undermine the viability of a future Palestinian state. The Kingdom of the Netherlands also strongly condemns plans that would amount to annexation to a large part of the West Bank, which would also constitute a flagrant violation of international law. We call on Israel not to take any steps toward annexation. We call on all parties to the conflicts to comply with their obligations under international law, in particular international humanitarian law. An independent, viable Palestinian state existing alongside a secure Israel is the only way this conflict can be resolved. We must persist in our decades-long pursuit of a two-state solution. For the Kingdom of the Netherlands, the recognition of a Palestinian state must be part of a political process leading to a negotiated two-state solution. I thank you.
I thank the representative of the Kingdom of the Netherlands. I give the floor now to Lithuania.
Thank you, Madam President. I would like to deliver this explanation of vote after the vote on behalf of Lithuania. Lithuania thanks the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia and France for their efforts to organize the high-level international conference for the peaceful settlement of the question of Palestine and the implementation of the two-state solution. We would also like to thank the co-chairs of the working groups for their work and the collective action to revive a political process in this regard towards a just, peaceful, and lasting settlement of the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. Lithuania voted in favor of the draft resolution entitled "The Endorsement of the New York Declaration on the Peaceful Settlement of the Question of Palestine and the Implementation of the Two-State Solution." However, our endorsement does not extend to the annex of the outcome document. It does not prejudge any sovereign decision by the Republic of Lithuania regarding recognition of the State of Palestine. Madam President, implementation of the two-state solution implies worldwide recognition of two states, Israel and Palestine. Lithuania recalls its statement during the first session of the high-level international conference for the peaceful settlement of the question of Palestine and the implementation of the two-state solution in July 2025. In particular, Lithuania expects that a way can be found to address legitimate Israeli concerns and have them join this process in the future. Furthermore, Lithuania calls for international consensus that by resorting to terrorism and hostage-taking, Hamas has become a major obstacle to the two-state solution and they cannot be part of the future Palestinian state. Lithuania continues to call for a peaceful settlement of Israeli-Palestinian conflict achieved through negotiations and reflecting the interests of both parties, the region and the international community, based on international law and in line with the United Nations Security Council Resolution 2735 of 2024. Lithuania remains committed to support the implementation of the two-state solution and intends to participate in the further international efforts in this regard. I thank you, Madam President.
I thank the representative of Lithuania. I give the floor now to Slovakia, followed by Paraguay, and followed by Marshall Islands.
Thank you, Madam President. Slovakia wishes to express its appreciation for the efforts undertaken in the preparation of the New York Declaration. We recognize the potential of the Declaration in promoting a comprehensive, just and durable peace in the Middle East. Having in mind a current desperate situation in Gaza, Slovakia has voted to endorse the New York Declaration. Nonetheless, we would like to take this opportunity to clarify that our endorsement does not extend to the annex attached to the declaration. This position reflects our current considerations regarding some of the proposals and recommendations included in the annex and does not preclude our future engagement or dialogue on its contents. We also remain committed to constructive and continued dialogue with all partners, including the United States and Israel, on a post-conflict arrangement in Gaza, one in which all hostages are released, Hamas is disarmed, and is excluded from any role. Thank you very much for your attention.
I thank the representative of Slovakia and give the floor to Paraguay.
Nuestra delegación aboga por la paz y la armonía entre las naciones y reafirma que el camino del entendimiento y el diálogo y la negociación son los adecuados, siempre y cuando incluya a todas las partes comprendidas. El Paraguay reconoce oficialmente a los dos estados, a Israel y a Palestina. Por eso, considera que este proceso del cual no hemos formado parte, así como tampoco otros actores principales, no es el adecuado para lograr una paz duradera, porque no cuenta con el apoyo necesario de uno de los dos estados sobre el cual versa la declaración, motivos por los cuales el Paraguay ha votado en contra. Gracias.
Muchas gracias to Paraguay. I give the floor now to the Marshall Islands, followed by South Africa and Latvia.
Thank you, Madam President. The Republic of the Marshall Islands wishes to provide a brief statement in explanation of our vote. Our yes vote today affirms the path of peace and negotiations which the Marshall Islands and the international community has consistently supported for over a quarter century. And this solution was long acknowledged by both Palestinian and Israeli representatives, as well as close diplomatic partners, as an arena of mutual focus. And this solution and the lasting peace which would accompany it is slipping away almost beyond our collective grasp. It is very difficult to envision any effective peace process without the two-state solution as a central focus. Our vote today in support of the General Assembly adopting the New York Declaration is not to be mistaken for formal diplomatic recognition of Palestine, which is a separate and sovereign national act. The real view of Hamas, not the Palestinian Authority, as a violent criminal force controlling force in Gaza has to be addressed. Hamas has never acknowledged the two-state solution. Lasting peace in the Middle East won't happen because of the UN majority vote. But such peace won't happen without a two-state solution at the center of future negotiations. Our vote today is not intended to take any partisan side, but to urge and encourage that the only pathway to eventual peace between Israel and Palestine be kept open. I thank you.
I thank the representative of the Marshall Islands and give the floor to South Africa.
Thank you, Madam President. I take the floor in explanation of vote on the resolution endorsement of the New York Declaration on the peaceful settlement of the question of Palestine and implementation of the two-state solution. We express our gratitude to you for convening this meeting and thank the co-chairs, France and Saudi Arabia, for a successful high-level international conference for peaceful settlement of the question of Palestine and the implementation of the two-state solution. This is a very important and long overdue matter. We also thank the co-chairs of the various working groups for their efforts in the build-up to and during the high-level conference in July. As we meet here today, the killings in Gaza are unabating. The genocide continues without any hope that it will soon end. The state of Israel continues to act with impunity and without fear of being held accountable. In recent days, it has extended its illegal actions by now also attacking Qatar in a blatant violation of international law, breaching the principles of sovereignty and territorial integrity, while also compromising the safeguarding of civilians as outlined in the United Nations Charter and international humanitarian law. This flagrant violation of the sovereignty and territorial integrity of the state of Qatar comes against the background of the government of Qatar playing a prominent role as facilitator to achieve a ceasefire in Gaza and the release of all hostages held by Hamas. Madam President, we note with deep concern the motion adopted by the Israeli Knesset calling for applying Israeli sovereignty over the occupied West Bank and the Jordan Valley, signaling the intention of Israel to annex this territory. This could effectively bury the two-state solution and continue with blatant violation of international law, including UN resolutions and ICJ rulings, which have given hope to the Palestinian people. This motion, together with statements such as those made yesterday by Prime Minister Netanyahu that, and I quote, "There will be no Palestinian state, this land is ours," close quote, undermines the prospect of a Palestinian state. Despite the horror that is happening in Gaza or the occupied Palestinian territories in general, we are pleased that UN member states, in their numbers, have come out in support of the call to end the atrocities in Palestine and implement the almost 80-year-old promise of Palestinian statehood. We are hopeful that the end of the occupation is within reach and the creation of a contiguous Palestine state existing peacefully and side by side with the State of Israel along the 1967 borders, with East Jerusalem as its capital, will soon become a reality. This resolution that we have adopted today, reaffirming the two-state solution, should not distract us from the urgent efforts that are needed to ensure an immediate ceasefire and an end to Israel's genocidal war against the Palestinian people. we should be emboldened to act so that negotiation for a just peace can commence. The stability of the Middle East region and international peace and security in general depends on a just and peaceful resolution to the question of Palestine, and holding those who violate international law accountable to ensure that all states are safe from wanton and brazen aggression, and that international law remains credible. At the request of the General Assembly, the ICJ has issued an advisory opinion finding Israel's continued presence in the occupied Palestinian territory, including East Jerusalem, unlawful, and that it must end rapidly